Hello and welcome to the Westveil Archives. My name is Jenna, I am an author-illustrator from Newfoundland, Canada, and this is my fairly new AuthorTube/BookTube platform. I have been on YouTube for over 2 years now, but that has only been on my art channel, Jenna Gets Creative, linked everywhere if that kind of thing is interesting to you. Thank you so much to everyone who has already come over to this channel, and thank you so much to everybody who subscribes from now on. I'm really enjoying this. I hope this channel grows quickly so that I can do more with it. Today I'm going to review A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is the much anticipated prequel to The Hunger Games, and the internet is quite divided on whether or not this was a good book. So I rated it 4 stars on Goodreads and on Audible. I listened to it as an audiobook, so that's why the cover is up here, or maybe all it was. Maybe I'm pointing at nothing right now. Maybe I'm just waving at my tiger painting, I don't know. I would like to have a physical copy purely for the completionist in me. Put it right here with the actual Hunger Games books. Like I said, 4 stars. If you prefer to read a review, I will link the book's listing on Goodreads and on Audible, so you can go find my review there. And I will be typing out a blog post to go along with this video, so I'll have a more edited review there as well. This is a prequel to The Hunger Games in that it takes place chronologically before The Hunger Games. I think there's enough world building and such in this book that if this is the first thing you're reading from Suzanne Collins, it does stand up on its own. I don't think I would actually recommend that this be read as a prequel. Yes, most of the characters are not in the Hunger Games trilogy, except of course for President Snow. This is the story of young Coriolanus Snow as a teenager, as a high school student, trying to earn a scholarship to go on to university, because although he's from the big affluent Snow family, his family lost all their money in the war, and they're trying to keep up the image. They're trying to pretend that they're still wealthy, but they aren't. So he needs a scholarship to go on to university, and he's taken on all these opportunities. He's mentoring under one of the game makers. This takes place during the 10th annual Hunger Games, and it's the first time that we're going to see mentors assigned to the tributes. But instead of this being mentors from the districts like we see in the Hunger Games, this time it is the high school students in the program that is working with the game designer. Coriolanus is assigned to the District 12 female tribute. It deals with what happens leading up to the 10th games, it deals with what happens in the 10th games, but it also deals with some stuff that happens after. If you've read The Hunger Games, which most of us reading this book have, you are constantly expecting at any turn, this is going to be the thing, no, this is going to be the thing, this is going to be the thing that kills Lucy Gray, this District 12 female tribute. Because in the Hunger Games, we know that we only have Haymitch as a District 12 victor. There's nobody else. There's certainly no female. So we're constantly wondering, when does Lucy Gray die? What's going to be the thing? And is this the thing that turns Snow? Because at this point, as a teenager, we're presented with a boy who is very privileged and has the sort of prejudice ideas in his mind that you would expect of somebody who has been raised in the lap of luxury in a society that thinks poorly about everybody who is not in the capital. There's definitely a lot of social discourse happening in this book talking about prejudice. There's a lot of analogs in here for racism. In that way, we hate Snow, but at the same time, Suzanne Collins has really made us relate to him and even root for him, and we like him despite his prejudices. And so we're wondering along the way, not only when is Lucy Gray gonna die, we're wondering what is the thing that makes him the evil, conniving man that we know in the Hunger Games, this evil President Snow. So yeah, I think if you were to read this book before having any exposure to the Hunger Games, even if it's just the films, I don't think the pacing would work. I don't think the suspense would be there, because you don't know that Snow is the bad guy and that Lucy Gray can't possibly survive and live on to be a victor. Without that knowledge, you're not wondering when things go wrong. Also, if you don't know anything about the Hunger Games yet, you won't appreciate some of the other nods that were dropped in to things that happen in the Hunger Games. For example, we get the origin of the song that Katniss sings in the second book, The Hanging Tree. Without spoiling where that song comes from and what it actually means, I will say Snow is deeply wrapped up in that song, so knowing how that song was used in the original Hunger Games trilogy, and then finding this out, you're just like, oh, did District 13 even know what they were using against Snow when they used that song? And I love that little tidbit. I love the fact that this is the introduction to mentors, and this is the introduction to bidding and sponsorship, and this is the introduction to making the games a show for all of Panem and not just this yearly ritual that happens where the districts watch the reaping and then forget about it, and only the capital really has an opportunity to pay attention. I love the fact that we got the point in history where the games changed. We do actually get to find out how the game started, whose idea it was, and what the reason behind it was. As somebody who enjoyed the Hunger Games, as somebody who has read the Hunger Games and seen the Hunger Games films, I really appreciate the backstory that this provides. I love and hate the fact that this book made me empathize with President Snow. I don't like the fact that it's actually being billed as a prequel in a way that would lead people to start here if they're new to the franchise, because I don't think you'll have the same effect or impact if you don't know what's coming later in the trilogy. I will also say, without spoiling the moment when Snow starts to become the Snow we know, that at that moment, the pacing changes. And like the criticism I have made of Mockingjay, we're halfway through, a big event happens, a big 180, and then the pacing changes. Just like that, I think the pacing goes too fast. I think it feels like suddenly the author is just wrapping things up. This book definitely suffers in the same way. We get that change, we get that one last final straw that makes Snow the man that we know, and then the book gets wrapped up. So fast. It could have been drawn out. We could have got all the little pieces along the way. We could have got more of what happens after. This could have set up a trilogy before the trilogy, but I don't think it has. I wouldn't be surprised if Collins writes another book before the trilogy, but I don't think this has set up another book. It didn't completely take us in the timeline to the beginning of the Hunger Games, but it didn't leave questions. Overall, I did enjoy it for what it is to be read after the original trilogy, and with that understanding, I rate it 4 stars out of 5. I definitely think it does deserve a 4-star rather than a 3. I did enjoy it. It's not the best, it could be better, it's not middle of the road. Something I wanted to say specifically about the audiobook experience, it sounds like the narrator went back and re-recorded problem spots, and he only recorded exactly the pieces that needed to be re-recorded. So what I mean by that is sentences or clusters of sentences sound different than the rest of the paragraph around it. So he read an entire paragraph and then re-recorded one line in the middle of that paragraph, and he's lost the pace, or he's lost the emotion in his voice, or he's lost the volume in his voice because he didn't go back to the beginning of that paragraph and build up to it again. I don't know if this is self-editing on the narrator's part, or if this was sent off to Collins or somebody representing Collins, and they've said, no, re-record this bit, and this bit. But pieces were definitely re-recorded, and there wasn't enough care taken to make it seamless. Early on, the first time I noticed it was a piece of dialogue, and it wasn't Snow, so I thought that maybe there was actually somebody else recording minor character dialogue lines, but that's not the case. It's just not very seamless second and third and fourth tries at a recording that have been blended into the bigger picture. I enjoyed it. I know some people didn't. I'd love to hear your take on it in the comments down below if you've already experienced this one, or if you want to come back here and tell me about it in the future when you get a chance. Thank you so much for watching. I upload here every Saturday and some Mondays, and I will see you next time. Bye guys!